All right, children, welcome back. In today's lecture, I'm going to use this cursed image of Sonic to explain how you can get more study done in less time. And I can say this pretty confidently because in engineering school, I got pretty much straight A's studying about 2 to 3 hours max per day. And this is not a lie. This is 100% the truth. And I can explain to you how exactly to do it because I'm not a genius. I'm not a genius. I just learned how to study smart. Because here's what I realized. School doesn't teach us how to study. They teach us a bunch of things. They teach us maths, physics, English. They teach us gender studies, but they don't teach us how to actually go about studying. Because trust me when I say most students are studying completely wrong. I know because I see this when I go to the library. I go to the library and I study around my friends. They are all studying completely wrong. If you just learn the science of studying, if you learn how studying can be done effectively, trust me, it's really, really straightforward. And that's what I want to go into in this video. I want to go into 3 ways that make Sonic really, really fast and how we can take those same principles and study fast ourselves. So I'm going to get into it. So how do we study faster? So I want to explain this equation here. Sorry if you're not a maths person. I'll explain this in detail. Basically, this is from the book Deep Work, by the way, by Cal Newport. Basically, the grade you get in your subject is equal to how intensely you focus multiplied by how long you focus for. So what this means is your grade is going to be determined by how well you focus and how long you study for. And here's the thing, most students focus on this. Most students study for longer, 12-hour days, 16-hour days. They're just studying all day. They camp out in the library with their Red Bulls and their sleeping bags. They bust out a tent in the library. They're camping in there for 24 hours. The correct way to go about this is to increase this, to focus better. So that's what I want to go into in this video. How can you focus better? I'm going to go through everything. So how can we maximize focus? Well, here's how you do it. So essentially the lowest level of focus that you can have is, you imagine you're sitting there and you're constantly being distracted by everything happening around you. And then up here, you focus a little bit better. And up here, maximum peak focus. What is this? This is what's called a flow state. When you are at maximum focus, you are in a flow state. Maybe you're familiar with this. Maybe you're playing a video game and there's no thoughts in your mind. You are just 100% present in the activity. I like to think of it as like a tennis player, for example. When they're on the court, they're not thinking. They're just 100% in the game, fully focused. Their focus is at maximum. So I want to teach you 3 ingredients you can use to enter this insane focus, this flow state. Now, I know the nerds in the audience are going to think, they're going to think like, oh bro, it's not flow state. Technically, it's deliberate practice. But the same principles apply, so don't worry. Okay, so the first ingredient of this flow state and what makes Sonic really, really fast is Sonic knows his enemies. So if you've ever played Sonic, he's got enemies like Dr. Eggman, Bowser, just kidding. Sorry for the Sonic fans, by the way. I know nothing about Sonic. I don't even know his enemies. But Sonic knows his enemies. Sonic is a video game character, by the way, if you didn't know. He knows his enemies. And when we're trying to get into flow state, what are our enemies? Our enemies are distractions. So we're all familiar with the common distractions, for example, our phone, video games, kids running around everywhere. We're all familiar with the common distractions. But here's something you need to realize. The most deadly distractions, the ones that are going to take you the most out of your flow state, are the ones you're not even aware of. So I'll explain this through an example. So a couple years ago, I was doing a robotics subject and I was finishing off the final report. So what I was doing was I was going to the library to camp out there and get this report done. But I noticed that no matter what, I could not focus. For multiple days in a row, I would go to the library and I would get almost nothing done. But then one day I realized something. I realized I kept getting distracted by the people who were walking by. I was sitting in this busy area of the library where there were people walking by. So I did a very simple fix. I simply turned around and I faced the wall to do my report. And suddenly, I was entering flow states and I got this report busted out very, very fast. So the reason I'm telling you this is because the things that distract us the most are often the things we're not even aware of. So here's the tactic I want to give you that I learned from the learning coach, Justin Sung. He talks about something called a focus cheat sheet. So what you do is you take a piece of paper and you religiously use this. You put it down next to your desk, and every time something distracts you, you write it down. So, for example, let's say your dog barking keeps taking you out of focus. Okay, dog barking. Maybe there's this bouncing thing that's in your corner. Okay, bouncing thing. Maybe you're always in a cafe and the chatter around you is taking you out of flow state. Okay, you write that. Another big thing that you're not aware of is your thoughts. Often there'll be like some kind of thoughts that loop in your mind. Write that shit down. For example, for me, whenever I would watch a movie or a YouTube video or something before I studied, when I would sit down to actually study, my mind would still be looping on the concepts that I had just learned in that movie, in that YouTube video. So write that down and make this a master list of thoughts, external things, everything that's distracting you. And since it's a cheat sheet, you can get to work at destroying these. So for example, your dog is constantly barking. Get headphones. Eliminate your dog. Move him away. That's what I mean. I don't condone violence, by the way. Or do I? So just get to work eliminating these distractions. Know your enemies. The art of war. To defeat your enemies, you have to know them. I don't know any of the quotes, but Sonic knows his enemies. That's why he can enter flow state. So know your enemies, which is your distractions. That's it. Use a distraction cheat sheet. Religiously use it. Okay. The second thing that Sonic does so well to make him fast as fuck, to make him speedy, gotta go fast, is, let me check my notes real quick actually. Okay, if you've played Sonic, you know that sorry if I'm butchering the game, by the way, but if you play Sonic, you know he chases these rings. Basically the reason he's so fast is he locks on to this path of rings. So to get into flow state, one of the ingredients for flow state is you need this path of rings. What I'm going to call it here is you need goals. You need specific, well-defined goals. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that here. So one of the requirements of flow state is you need goals. When you're playing tennis, your goal is to defeat your enemy to get a point. If you don't have goals for your flow state, there's nothing for you to actually stay locked in and work as fast as possible. So what you need to do is you need to have specific, well-defined goals. So I'm going to tell you how exactly to do that. Basically, you need two things. One is you need time. You need to know how long you are going to study for. Say, for example, 90 minutes. And the second thing is they need to be well-defined. So I'll give you some examples here. For example, and here's what you do. I highly recommend getting a journal, by the way, something like this, where, oh shit, my notes. Get a journal, something like this, where you have your distraction cheat sheet and you write down your study goals. Before you sit down to actually study, make it super clear in your mind what exactly you're going to do during that session. Really make it clear what your goals are. Make it clear what rings you are going to chase during this study session, because you need well-defined goals for flow state. If you don't have any goals, your brain won't feel that sense of pressure to be locked in and to get into flow state. If you don't give yourself an amount of time you're going to study for, your brain won't have that sense of urgency. It'll think you've got all day, so it won't get into that rush. You're not consciously aware of it, but you won't be able to lock into flow state. So some examples of well-defined goals are things like, I'm going to write 400 words of my essay in 90 minutes. Or for example, I'm going to do this 2016 past paper in 2 hours. So literally open your study journal, have a study journal, and write exactly the goals you're going to hit for this session and how long you're going to study for. And a bonus tip on this, by the way, use a timer. On Windows, there's a feature where you can put a timer in the corner. Sometimes I just use my phone. I literally just put a timer, put my phone on airplane mode. When you have a timer, it gives you that sense of pressure when you're working. Like I said, you need this pressure, you need these goals to get into flow state. I like to think of flow state, by the way, as pressure. So if you don't have any sense of pressure in your study session, you don't have goals, you don't have time, you don't get into flow state, there's no sense of urgency, you're just floating, you're not like locked in. If there's too much pressure though, you get anxiety. There's too little time. There's too many difficult things you have to do. So flow state is like that perfect pressure where you're essentially locked in at your maximum focus, your maximum efficiency. And if you can get into maximum flow state, this will give you the minimum amount of time you need to get whatever your grades you desire. So that's the second thing that makes Sonic so good. He locks into rings, he locks into goals. And now the final one, I think this is the most important, by the way. This is something where when you realize this, when you deeply realize this, your mind will be blown. Trust me. So it's going to seem weird at first, but I'll get into it. So Sonic, if you've ever played any video game, to be honest, you know you have lives, right? So Sonic would have one life. Sonic would have 3 lives, let's say. Hearts. These are hearts, by the way. My drawing is absolutely trash, by the way, if you didn't know. And so Sonic will have 3 lives. And when he gets attacked, he'll lose a life, you know. That's Minecraft, by the way. Sonic will lose a life, and he'll have, 2 hearts left. So how does lives relate to studying? Do we physically die when we study? Is this some kind of abstract concept where, dying will be reborn with new knowledge and wiser? No. So what goals mean here? Sorry. What lives mean here? I gotta slow down a bit. Let me know if this video is helpful at all, by the way. I have no clue if this is even helping. If any of this makes sense at all, please let me know if you want to see more videos like this. But, okay. What you can think of in terms of lives is effort. And I'm going to explain this exactly what I mean here. But a general rule when it comes to studying, when it comes to getting into flow state, is it's supposed to be effortful. It's supposed to take effort. Because when you're studying, when you're learning, when you're in peak performance, your brain chemistry is changing. It's called neuroplasticity. And for your neural networks to literally rewire themselves, it takes effort. If studying was easy, everyone would be walking around with A's as doctors. We'd all be engineers, we'd all be doctors. The reason why A's are rare is because it takes effort. It's supposed to be painful. And I'll go into a bit of detail with this. Where I learned this from, by the way, is this book called The Art of Impossible. And there is a 10 out of 10 quote from that book that really encapsulates this well. I recommend taking that quote, tattooing it onto your chest, literally writing it in the cover of your study journal. Put it on your wall. It's such an important quote. Basically, what the book says is, if you can't read my trash handwriting, by the way, it's supposed to be hard. This is something you can just constantly remind yourself. It's supposed to be hard. Anything worth doing is supposed to be hard. Just let that sink in for a minute. This quote is insane because, okay, let me tell you how this relates to lives. Basically, when we sit down to study, when we sit down to focus, we often feel a bit tired. It's like, oh, bro, my brain hurty, bro. I just want to go lie down, man. I really don't feel like studying. I'm so tired. I'm falling asleep. I know for me, I might be wide awake, but as soon as I start reading a difficult textbook, tiredness will hit me. And this is the concept you need to understand. It's this concept from the book, The Art of Impossible, called second wind. So I think this relates to boxers. Sometimes a fighter will get knocked down, but he'll wake up again for a second fight, for a second wind. So this is where the concept of lives comes in. When you sit down to focus and you're tired as fuck, if you understand it's supposed to be painful, it's supposed to be effortful, and you push through that wall of tiredness, often what will happen is you will break through that wall and you will enter second wind. You will enter your second life. So you sit down to focus, you sit down to study. It's painful, it takes effort. You're tired, you want to sleep, it's killing you. Oof, oof, oof. It's taking away your lives. But then you wake up on the other side and you enter this flow state and you get second wind. It's essentially your brain is testing you. It's like, bro, are you serious? Are you actually going to study right now, bro? How about we go watch some Netflix? Your brain is trying to seduce you. If you punch your brain, you use your second life, and you push through with effort, you will essentially wake up and you will enter the flow state. This is like the fee that's required to enter the flow state. You have to pay with effort. And then you enter that beautiful flow state where, it's effortless because you're just in the zone. Now, by the way, I am seriously overcomplicating this. It doesn't always happen exactly like this. You might enter in and out of flow state, but the principle remains. It takes effort to study. So, for example, they've done a bunch of experiments on the most effective study methods and the least effective study methods. And it's not surprising that the most effective study methods were the ones that took effort. So the least effective study methods were things like highlighting, copy pasting notes. These things that are so easy and they take no effort. So it's not surprising. I always see students highlighting their textbook. And they do it because it's easy. I'm not saying it's a bad study method, by the way. It's just not effective. So a way to judge if a study method is effective, one way, it's not the only way. It's not the only way. Is it effortful? So what are the best study methods that they found? Testing, which takes effort because you're asking yourself questions, you're trying to solve the problems. Teaching is difficult because you're trying to teach the methods, you're racking your brain to try to explain the concepts in a way that the person you're teaching to can understand. Active recall. So it's things that actually involve you taking information out of your brain, because that's what takes effort. But that's where the learning is going to happen. Like I said, if studying wasn't effortful, we'd all be walking around with A's. We'd all be, doctors walking around in society. So studying takes effort in general. It's supposed to be painful. But again, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because you understand that it's normal to feel tired. Often we think we're burnt out, but it's often because we're just not pushing through. We don't understand that it's supposed to be hard. If we want to grow, if we want to learn, it's going to be a bit painful at times. But we can actually learn to enjoy this pain. Because when you understand that it's supposed to be hard, you can start to associate the pain, the effort, with growth. And it becomes exciting. It's like, those bodybuilders, they're like, oh, I love the pain, man. I love pushing my muscles to failure. Because you start to associate that pain with growth. I think it's growth mindset, where the people who have the weakest mindsets are the ones where they associate pain with negativity. But you can actually begin to realize that it's supposed to be hard to study, and you can begin to, coach yourself and tell yourself that it's supposed to be hard. Now, I'm not saying, you can be 48 hours sleep deprived and you can still push through and study. 100% you need to know when it's time to rest. But a lot of the times we think we need to rest, but we just need to push through and get that second wind. So if you've got the energy to play video games, you probably have the energy to study. You just don't understand that it's going to be effortful, especially at first. So understand that, it's completely normal that you're lazy, that you don't feel like studying, that you're tired. That's completely normal. Just sit down and do it anyway. So hopefully this helped. Hopefully this makes sense. Goodbye. Get out of my classroom. Get out of my classroom now.